Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. Our guest today is Paul Ross. Buckle up, friends. This guy is lots of fun energy. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and to take some valuable time and be the person who extends an invitation to share this wonderful exploration on the world of subconscious success and what we can do with the unlimited power of our mind when we really tap into the right mindset.
I love it. So let's talk about how you're doing that in your business. Can you give our listeners a little bit of a backstory, a little overview about what it is that you do?
Sure. Now, this is something that I never revealed to the hosts beforehand because I like to catch them off guard. I started my entrepreneurial journey as someone who teaches men how to, I'm just going to say it, pick up women. And so what happened in the course of that is I had an absolutely horrible mindset. I hated my body. I was so shy, I couldn't even talk to a woman. And then through my exploration of something called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming and self-hypnosis, I lost that. I went from fear and hating myself to a mindset of let's go have fun, learning to communicate in a completely different way and view everything that I go through as a fun exploration. And there is no losing, there's only learning. I took on a belief that says I'll either enjoy getting my outcome or I'll joyfully explore the learnings I extract from each and every interaction that I have. And what happened, how I transitioned to business, is I started getting emails from clients saying, thank you. I'm attaching a picture of my wife and my kids. And by the way, I've been using this in sales and I've tripled or doubled my sales using this same mindset stuff because it applies to business and sales as well. And this is around 2006. I thought, hey, genius, why didn't you see this connection? So I went back into my mad scientist language lab and figured out how to do that for business and created some ways to communicate with your clients and prospects and even employees subconsciously. And that's how it all took off.
I'm excited to be having this conversation as a hypnotherapist myself and someone who has personally experienced so much transformation in my own life by using self-hypnosis, hypnosis audios, hypnotherapists, NLP, EFT, so many different types of processes. I know how powerful this is. I don't talk about it very often anymore, but literally at one point, I would not let people take photographs of me. I was so insecure. I was the wallflower. I was always kind of hiding quietly in the background.
Wow.
Where I am today could be mind-boggling to people who knew me early on in life. And I'll get messages every now and then on social media or something, somebody from high school. It's like, can you help me? Like if you can do it for you, you got, what guidance can you give me? So now here we're talking to incredibly talented, heart-centric business owners who know that they have something of value to offer other people. And they probably also know that they're the one getting in their own way.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
Yes. So first of all, we don't see the world objectively. We see the world through our maps and models of the world. We see the world, if I could use, it's only a metaphor. If I could use a metaphor, because I teach with metaphors. Let's say I have a sheet of gold foil and I have a sheet of cardboard and I want to conduct a current of electricity. Which one, and this is not a trick question, which one of those is going to conduct the electricity, the gold foil or the cardboard? And it's not a trick question.
The gold foil.
Exactly. So think of our states of mind as the conductive medium for our desires, our wishes, even the communications and the things we want to share. If you're in those cardboard states of self-doubt, of distraction, because this thing here is now one of our major mindset problems, because we don't know how to focus anymore. Even I'll just challenge you as a very successful and focused person. How many times have you looked at your phone today? I challenge the audience, the most successful people. So focus is the currency of success, and it's the currency of mindset. Because if you're constantly distracted and can't focus, which is one of the things, as you know, as a fellow hypnotherapist, we create those states of hyperfocus. But the other thing I want to say is, so we look at our world through these conductive mediums. Now, what's the gold foil state? Well, the gold foil state, I like to think of beyond confidence. Confidence is great, but joy and exploring what's possible is even better. I think the opposite of fear is not confidence. The opposite to fear is joy, a joyous willingness to step into the unknown without needing a guarantee. This is courage and joy combined is the opposite of confidence. Now, we can say that as much as we want, but if we have all these subconscious or unconscious, we use them interchangeably, as you know, they're the same thing. We have all of these pains and phobias and traumas lurking underneath, then it's going to get in our way. Now, this has been said so many times, it's almost trite. But here's the thing I want to convey to people. In my experience as a healer, not just a persuader and a salesperson, but as a healer, even the most successful people I work with some VIP people, like 7 figures net worth, and they have imposter syndrome. They don't believe that they deserve the success. So when I work with people, I look at their different levels of belief. There's belief about possibility, what's possible for them and in their world. Capability, what are they capable of doing? Deservingness, do they deserve it? And then identity. Capability and possibility are relatively easy to change, relatively, compared to changing beliefs about deservingness and changing identity. So, for example, as someone who does NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, I won't get into what that is. I don't want to get into a deep discussion. Someone can come to me with a phobia of, say, stage fright. I can cure stage fright, a speaking phobia like that. And that is just one thing, but it doesn't tackle the larger issue of identity, who they are as people, how they walk through the world. You as an entrepreneur, you as a successful CEO, business owner, you may be able to change one skill. I get it. Bless you. That's great. But if you're not changing your sense of identity, if you're still walking around that cardboard, then you're going to get soggy results. And I'll say one more thing with a story, and then I promise I'll shut up unless you and let you. May I? Can I keep going?
You keep going. This is all gold, so keep going.
Okay, I'm going to use a metaphor. I am Jewish. I won't get into the current events. Breaks my heart. But when I was a little kid, I had this terrible thing of breaking my little brother Stevie's toys. He's forgiven me after 60 years. But anyway, for Hanukkah, my sister bought Stevie a toy robot. And back in 1966, the toy robots were not sophisticated. There's no AI. All you could do is make him go forward, go backwards, and make the little lights that were their eyes blink. So I wanted to break the toy. I pressed forward and backwards at the same time. The robot started to shake. Blue smoke came out of the wires in its robot butt, and it developed an internal conflict, and it burned up and fell over. And so many times we have this internal friction of consciously wanting to move forward, but unconsciously wanting to either stay where you are or move backwards. So if success has felt to you, my dear people watching and listening, as there's some kind of internal tug of war, that is what's going on. And stepping into exactly what the structure of that internal friction is, not why, but the structure, what holds it together, is my specialty, and then pulling out the piece that stands in the way.
This particular dialogue that we're having right here is almost the perfect summary of what I literally was just talking to my client about on the session that I was doing before we got on Zoom to start recording this podcast interview. This inner conflict it is felt in the depths of our being, right? Like we can intellectually identify certain beliefs, certain self-image things. But that conflict can sometimes confuse us as well, because if we have a belief, no, I really want this success. No, I really am willing to put myself out there. No, really, I believe that I'm worthy because I know we are all divine beings. That intellectual talk that we're all having with ourselves can sometimes mask that deeper, more conflicting, contradictory belief or set of beliefs. And that really can wreak havoc on someone who is convinced that maybe they should be further along than they actually are.
Yeah.
When you're working with your clients, how are you identifying what those tricky, insidious, conflicting self-image and those old beliefs that are just
I
deep?
ask them a magic question. It depends on what I'm doing. If they come out to see me, I can do trance. I'm really good at it. I've been doing it for 30 years. I can do trance over Zoom, but it depends on the medium. But I like to ask a magic question, and I'll allow you to, you may already be doing it. I'll say, if I had a magic wand and I could wave it over you and you woke up tomorrow and you no longer had these limiting beliefs, all your less, I don't say bad or negative, I say all your suboptimum beliefs, attitudes, habits were gone, vanished, erased, disappeared, gone, gone, gone. How would you know what would be there in its place? And why would it matter to you in terms of what you value in your world? Now, that's a magic question. In order to answer it, you have to go deep into trance. And by listening to their answers, they will reveal what's lacking on their map. At first, they'll say, well, I wouldn't believe that X. And I'll say, no, you have to put it in the positive. What would you believe? And then when they identify those beliefs, I go down each one and I say, okay, what specifically prevents you from already recognizing you're believing it now? Or I'll say, how does everything now change as you suddenly mysteriously recognize that belief has already changed for reasons you never need to understand? So I load it up with presuppositions and hypnotic language. So they have to go into trance to process that question. That activates the unconscious mind. And when you activate the unconscious mind in the right way, and you give it the right kind of permission, it will come up with the answer without the conscious mind's interference. So let me review that structure, what I do. I put them in a light little trance. I ask that magic question. If you woke up tomorrow and all your limiting beliefs, emotional patterns, etc., were gone, vanished, disappeared, eliminated for good, how would you know what would be there in its place? And how would it match all the things you value? Now, sometimes it's not a belief conflict. What it is a conflict between their values and what they're actually doing. So sometimes it is not. That self-sabotage has not got to do with limiting beliefs. It's got to do with a conflict or a lack of knowledge about their true values and their behavior, because that becomes a spiritual conflict. I'll say it again. It's one thing to have a subconscious or unconscious conflict, but if you don't know your values, or you do know your values and they clash with your beliefs and your behavior, then it will feel, no matter what your external success, like you're being torn apart, or your moods will vary dramatically. You'll go from loving yourself to hating yourself. I always want to say, how can I create a vision for my clients that's not dependent on the events of the day or their feelings in the moment or external validation from other people? How do I do that and yet create a space where they're open to free feedback to other people? That's an exquisite dish to help my clients cook up.
This is such a powerful conversation. I'm going to encourage our listeners to make sure they listen back, because this is something that would be valuable to revisit probably multiple times to really start to absorb what you're sharing here. Because this is not just your conventional self-help, positive thinking stuff that we're
Oh,
talking about here.
no. No, I think positive thinking can be one of the most destructive things possible, because you're suppressing your own internal pain, and you're not looking at what you may be doing that's ineffective, and you're shutting out the very people, maybe people on your team, who could be giving you feedback on what you need to correct. Notice what I said on that last little piece: a vision that's not dependent on the events of the day, your feelings in the moment, your values are aligned, but you're also open to feedback to other people. Hey, there are people in the history of the world who totally believed in themselves, had high self-esteem, but they were terrible people. Adolf Hitler, may he rot forever in eternal punishment. That's my belief, so I shouldn't say that. It's a bad vibe. But he believed in everything he was doing. You understand? So we need to look to see, do our vision and our values align? Does our behavior match it? And do our beliefs support it? It's not just a matter of thinking positive, and changing beliefs can work. Again, if someone's just afraid of a spider, I can change that belief. But if we're talking about major issues of self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, that's a whole different ballgame. And one more claim I will make is I have worked with the most. I don't believe people are broken at all. I do believe people are pained and they're self-limiting. I believe we're all giants and geniuses, and when we're born, that gets screwed up very badly. I have worked with men who are 35, 40, 45 years old and never been kissed, never had a date in their life. You have to imagine the shame, envy, resentment, self-hate that I helped them out of. And I'll say, I know I'm talking a lot. Your viewers may think he's bulldozing. I want to say one more thing. Even worse than the lack of self-confidence or imposter syndrome are the spiritual poisons. And when I work with my highly successful CEOs, VIPs, high net worth people, I want to dive into the spiritual part, which I deal with meditation. And that is resentment, envy, and envy, and resentment and envy, I would say, are terrible spiritual poisons. When you resent other people's success or envy it on a deep level, on a level that's non-material, on the unseen level, which I believe in because I've seen it. Well, that's a contradiction. I've witnessed it. I've not seen it. When you envy something or someone, you're effectively saying, I don't believe I could ever have that. I have a dollar bill laying around somewhere. Hold on. No one envies me for having this, because you could reach into your wallet and pull one out. But if I have a nice home or a beautiful marriage that's working, if you envy that or resent it, that's sending a deep message to the beyond unconscious mind, to something much more deeper, more expanded, that you don't believe you can have it. Envy, resentment, and the last one I was thinking is self-pity, because self-pity is another one that says, I can't have it and I'm entitled to have it. Entitlement is another one, because entitlement leads to laziness. If I believe I'm entitled to have a team that supports me, then I'm going to be lazy and not work to do the changes I need to do. And so when I really get into the work with clients who commit to work with me for 90 days, 6 months, we're going to address that level, because those spiritual poisons are pandemic and you're not going to reach them. I love hypnosis. I've been doing hypnosis forever. It does miraculous things, but that's when I get into my primary practice of my spiritual practice, which is Vipassana meditation. It has changed how I walk through the world and how I define what it means for me to be a human.
I love it. I want to shift gears a little bit.
Mhm.
because we got a little bit of time left.
Okay.
And I really want to get into you,
Mhm.
Paul, as the business owner.
Yes.
We're talking about all of these mindset challenges. I refer to them as mindset challenges. We could get all specific, limiting beliefs, spiritual,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
we'll keep it a little bit more, we'll keep it soft. We'll just say
Sure.
mindset challenges.
Yeah. Sure.
You've obviously had to do your own work as well.
Oh God, yes. And I'm still doing it.
Still doing it. We all are. This is what I love to get into just a little bit with each of my guests when at
Okay.
all possible, because there are so many individuals out there who are looking at other quote successful business people, and there's this natural tendency to say, well, sure, it was easier for them because they didn't have this problem that I have.
No, no. Oh boy, that's not true. Go ahead and finish your question.
Well, what I would love from you is perhaps you can share just a little bit about some of the things that you had to break through, or maybe even just one
Yes.
mindset hurdle that really was an obstacle for you
Sure.
that you had to work through in order to get to where you are today.
Well, there are a couple of things that have really been profound challenges for me. One of them is a belief that I cannot be organized and I cannot be a numbers person. Now, I had to recognize it's not that I can't be, it's just it's not the best investment of my time, energy, and focus. So I've hired other people to do it. But this belief that says I have to be the perfect person who learns to do everything, because I grew up in an extremely competitive family. There was very little emotional warmth. You were just rewarded for doing things well. I really had to shift that around and say, no, you know what? I'm going to choose how I feel about myself. I'm going to joyfully accept the help and the competency of other people. And I had to learn to be emotionally intelligent. As someone who's very, very, you can tell I'm a brilliant human. I'm not tooting my own horn. I've always been smart from up here, but I wasn't smart in here. And I had to learn to do that. And that was a difficult thing. I went through my own therapeutic journey with something called DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. I'm assuming that you are.
I've heard of it, but I've not personally
Yes,
experienced
it
it.
was the only form of therapy that ever helped me. I've struggled with depression to the point where I literally committed myself voluntarily for 3 days. I was ready. The only thing that stopped me from stepping off a balcony is my nephew was very concerned. He happened to be there with me and physically pulled me away. I don't struggle with it anymore. I manage it perfectly, but it took me years to do it. I'm diagnosed bipolar. I don't call myself bipolar. I say I have the bipolar experience, which I manage well. I don't identify with it. I don't make it my identity. I make it an experience that I have and that I shape and that I manage. So these are some of the things I've had to learn to deal with. I've had external struggles. The IRS didn't like one of the investments that one of my advisors made. He dropped out of a heart attack in Switzerland. They came after me. I had a 5-year battle, which gave me a heart attack that nearly killed me. I lost about 85% of my net worth when you divide it between the IRS and my attorneys. The attorneys are only less, the IRS, you can consider them vampire squids. The attorneys are just vampires, and I had to start all over again. And but I had to keep self-love going and really struggle with how self-pity, and I had to grieve. I had to grieve what I had built. So to be able to courageously face these things, I couldn't have done it without the support of my team and my friends and my meditation practice. I would be dead today if it weren't for that practice. I could look you well straight in the camera and say that practice saved my life.
So here you are today, and you are having a really positive, profound influence on people. And
Yep.
that's a really beautiful thing.
Yep. That's what I live for. My mother gave me a message. She said, Paul, I didn't have you for myself. I had you for the world. And that really got to me. And she also said something else to me. She always taught me through metaphors, which I think made me a really good or a great teacher. I was sassing her one day. She said, Paul, if you don't, I was 6, 7 years old. She said, if you don't stop it, you'll grow up to be an iconoclast. I said, what's that, Mommy? She said, that's someone who goes around knocking over other people's sacred ideas and really making them angry. And I said, I want to be an iconoclast. How do I do that? So that shifted my mindset. I'm very contrarian and I can be a polarizing figure. But behind all of that is the desire to break through people's limiting ideas that have been taught to them. One more quick thing, and I promise I'll let you go, or you can let me go. This is an example. Everyone says learn from every experience, but no one gives you a process to do that. And when I kept encountering that, I heard my voice, my mom's voice in my head. She's passed on. And she said, Paul, you've got to tackle this stupidity. So I came up with a very specialized process that my clients can go through to quickly learn from anything they do. Because if you don't have a learning strategy that lets you extract out the maximum lesson, your mind will dwell on it over and over, attempting to find an answer. And here's the law of the mind. Your mind cannot tell the difference between what you dwell on and what you're programming it back to do. So it's not that you're an identity called a self-sabotager or a confidence problem. Many people just have a bad learning strategy that guarantees that they're gluing the problem back in the face. So with my mom's encouragement when I was 6 years old, and with what I saw with my dating clients who are suffering so badly, repeating mistakes, my unique claim among anyone else out there is I've come up with a way for people to rapidly learn from their lessons so they apply them immediately. So I'm a big talker. Thank you for this.
Well, this is a great opportunity for you to share with our listeners how they can connect with you. So if they want to extract those tidbits and they want to learn at a higher level or deeper level, depending on what terminology you want to use, how can our listeners find you?
Sure. Well, I have a book, Subtle Words That Sell, how to get your prospects to convince themselves to buy. And the first 4 chapters are all about mindset. The rest of the book is on using subconscious language to do some amazing things. If you would like a free copy of that book, along with a little training, a 17-minute video training on crushing objections using hypnotic techniques, it's all free. Go to paulrossbook.com, paulrossbook.com. And if you want more of my wisdom in a different way, actually, that I get from my guests, I have a podcast called The Influencer's Edge. I'd love to have you on my show if we could talk about
I would love that.
Yes, I would love to have you on. Thank you for this opportunity. We won't get into the details, but this has been a tremendously emotional few days with events in the news. It's been crushingly hard for me. So this has been a wonderful oasis for me to get out of that and share something.
I am grateful to be that little oasis, play a little part in your sanity while you're witnessing some of the things that are taking place in the world that hits so close to home for you. This episode is going to go out in probably about a month or so after we're recording, and we don't know what we're going to see. So hopefully it's good. Hopefully there is an intervention. And so with that, I want to thank you for bringing your A game in spite of sort of being a little shook into your core. And I want to encourage our listeners to go down the rabbit hole with you. Check out your book, connect with you, check out your podcast. Of course, I do always say it whenever I have a guest and we're getting into like this deeper stuff. This is the stuff that I get most excited about. Granted, obviously I have a business podcast because I geek out on the business side of things, but there's a reason that I specialize in mindset. And that's because this is so near and dear to my heart. And I just know how transformational this work is, both personally as well as having done this work for my clients for over a decade, almost 2 decades now. We all have so much stuff in our own head that is slowing us down, holding us back, making us miserable. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it does not.
So thank you so much, Paul, for being with me.
Thank you. And stay on for a bit so we can tell you how you can come on my show. Thank
And
you.
of course, got to thank all of our listeners. You know, we're doing
Yes.
this for you. If you haven't
Yes.
already subscribed, please make sure you do so. And we will see you in the next episode.